our Warner Robins candidates here. We're going to have a live chat today. Try to have a little bit of fun with everyone. It looks like Daron Lee is running behind, and our lovely Eva Folse is having some sound problems, so I will be her sound on this end. I'll just have to hold up my phone. That's why she's holding onto a phone. So, like I said, we're going to have a little bit of fun. It'll be about 90 minutes long in order for us to fit in some serious city issues questions and a little bit of trivia. And our candidates also have some lovely photos to show us. You can follow us along. You can also tweet us using hashtag the number 4 WRMayor. We're asking that you send in a fun kind of question for the candidates to answer near the end. Something for you to get to know their personality. The example that we've used around the newsroom is maybe, what's your personal theme song? Our candidates will be, we'll keep them on track using some sound effects. The first of which will be a ticking clock. When their time is almost up, they'll have a ticking clock. It'll sound like this. And when their time is up, they'll get one of these. Okay? And to our candidates, let's all have fun and be respectful. For those of you out there, I have pre-warned them all that we can turn off their sound on this end or their videos. But if they break any of those rules, or if the rules aren't followed, hopefully we won't have to do that. So first we're going to start. Say hi to all our candidates. It looks like Daron Lee has joined us. We have former Councilman Mike Brashear.
Good afternoon and welcome to the second installment of Google Hangout, brought to you live by Macon.com.
Thank you. And Robbins Air Force Base employee Chuck Chalk. Sorry, Chuck, we can't hear you. I don't know what that's about. And of course, we have Miss Eva Folse.
Thank you for having me. Sorry.
And Councilman Daron Lee.
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be here. Good to see everyone.
Okay. And Joe Musselwhite, recently retired Public Works Director.
Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be here today.
And former firefighter Randy Toms.
Good afternoon. It's good to be with everybody.
We're going to start this thing out a little bit like just about any other candidate forum that you would go to, with opening statements. Our candidates have 2 minutes apiece to give us their spiel, so to say. We'll start with Mike Brashear.
Yes, well, hello again. Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to be able to chat with you today. My name is Mike Brashear. I'm 65 years old. I've been a 20-year resident of the city of Warner Robins. I came here back in 1982 for the first time with Northrop, and opened a facility down on Industrial Park Boulevard. Came back in 92. I ran that facility for 3 years and transferred back to Chicago. And then in 98, we came back to Warner Robins to make this our home and our retirement place. I've got 39 years of business management experience in the aerospace and defense industries, beginning on the manufacturing floor and retiring as a senior vice president of operations. So I'm more than qualified to run a business such as the city of Warner Robins. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brashear. Chuck Chalk, 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be here with you again today here on Google Plus and Macon.com. Thank you for Christina and the Telegraph for hosting this, and welcome to everybody. I am Chuck. I'm a civil servant on base. I've been associated with the Air Force for 27 years, 20 years active duty, about half of that enlisted, half as an officer, and now 7 years as a civil servant, doing a number of different jobs to include executive support, protocol, logistics management, and currently fulfilling a role as a logistics manager for the C-130J program. Glad to be here. I look forward to this forum. I look forward to earning your vote for mayor of Warner Robins on November 5th.
Okay. And Ms. Folse, could you give us a 2-minute opening statement?
I've checked it.
I'm a 43-year resident of Warner Robins. We came here in 1970, and we have experienced all this growth and changes in Warner Robins. I'd like to be the next mayor. I think we're at a turning point here where we need to do things a little different. We can do better, I think, some of the ways that we're doing things. I appreciate everyone tuning in to become more informed, and hope y'all get out and vote on November the 5th. My birthday's on the 4th, so.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Folse and Mr. Daron Lee. Two-minute opening statement.
Hello, can y'all hear me okay? Are we?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Maybe it's on our end. Good afternoon. I'm Daron Lee. I look forward to serving as mayor of Warner Robins, Georgia. I am one who's homegrown here. I've had a chance to travel outside of the boundaries and really build relationships. Get a background that has prepared me for mayor. I had a long vision of being mayor long before, not just yesterday. But with that in mind, I've been prepped in leadership training schools in the state of Georgia, also with the University of Georgia and Robert E. Knox Leadership Institute. And really, I just have a lot to bring to the table. A lot of seeds have been sown, and we have the chance as an entire city and region to reap what we have sown in the fields out there in economic development and other parts of the industry. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Joe Musselwhite.
Hey, thank you, Christina. Pleasure to be here today, and thanks for everyone for participating. I was born in Warner Robins in 1953. I was actually born in Perry in a house. There wasn't a hospital here then. That was back when you were born and went home the same day. I've been in Warner Robins my entire 60 years of my life. Warner Robins is my home. I'm vested here. I was educated here, and then after I become a city employee, I went to the Carl Vinston School of Institute. I want to thank the city for probably paying the better part of $25,000 or $30,000 to educate me, where I would be qualified to run the city. I look forward to serving the people. I am a public servant. I've done that through the capacity of Public Works Director. As a mayor, I will have a transparent government. There will be no secrets in City Hall. There will be no items on the agenda that aren't on there before the meeting starts. And we'll move our city forward. We're going to make good progress. We're going to clean up areas of town. And very soon I've been saying I'm going to clean it up. I'm prepared to tell you my plan to do that. Thank you very much. And please vote for Joe Musselwhite on November 5th.
Thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. And Mr. Randy Toms.
Hello. It's good to be with you. Thanks, Christina. Thanks to the rest of the folks out there listening. My name is Randy Toms, and I, too, was living here when I was born a little south of here, but my family was already here when I was born, so I've been here since 1960. Was educated here in elementary school, junior high, high school. Eventually, later in life, I got a college degree from Georgia Military College right there on Davis Drive. I've been here all my life. I was a public servant in public safety for 27 years. I worked as a bailiff in the Superior Court system of Houston County for 15 years. And so my whole life has been about serving people. I know a lot about the city of Warner Robins. I know a lot about the city government. I have had extensive leadership training throughout my career as a firefighter and a fire officer. And I know how to bring the style of leadership to the city government that Warner Robins needs, and especially the city employees need, to go out and deliver the services that are required for the citizens paying for those services. I've been married to my wife for 31 years. We have 2 children who are both married, and we have 3 grandchildren. And I want to be the mayor of Warner Robins, to make Warner Robins the kind of city that it needs to be for the next generation and the next generations to come. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this, and I just ask for your support and your vote on November the 5th or before during the early voting. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all. Now we're going to do some one of the hopefully sort of fun things to get to know everyone a little bit better on a personal level. I asked all of the candidates to bring a childhood photo with them and share it with us. I told them that if they did theirs, I'd do mine. So here it goes. This is of me and my big brother. I'm sorry it's so small. I live away from home, so it's hard to get my hands on a good photo. But that's my big brother there, and that's me on the right-hand side. My grandmother made the dress that I'm wearing and the bow tie that my brother is wearing. So enough about me. We're going to start with Mr. Chuck Chalk for his. You've got 30 seconds to talk about it, Chuck.
Okay, let's see if this pops up. I think it's coming. Well, if there were a picture, it would be a picture of me and my little sister, ages probably 3 and 2. She's about 1.5 years younger than me. I have 10 brothers and sisters. One of them is deceased. He actually worked here in Warner Robins, right next to where my headquarters is, which used to be a Midas store back in the 70s. We would come up from Cordele and visit with him when he was working here. He was 8 years older than me, I think. And had memories of Warner Robins driving in off the interstate as a young man in the back of a '66 Buick Wildcat, wondering when is this farmland going to end. Of course, it was only a couple miles, but as a kid, it seems like a long way. So I have a large family. Most of them live here in Crisp and Dooley County. I have still a sister up in Michigan, a brother in South Carolina, family throughout Georgia and Florida. So that's a picture of me. Hopefully it pops up.
Okay. And Ms. Folse, we'd like to see a picture of you as a child in 30 seconds to talk about it. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Folse.
Oh, okay. There's the picture's starting to come up.
Do you have your picture to hold up to the camera?
Yes, I do. This is a picture of me making my first communion, and it was taken in England.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Folse. Mr. Daron Lee, can we see a photo of you and what you look like as a child? Talk to us about it a little bit.
I don't know if you're talking to me.
Yes, Mr. Lee, we're talking to you.
Okay, okay. This is my brother. My mom and dad had taken us to Disney World, and believe it or not, I'm someone, I love balloons still to this day. It's a softer side of me. To this day, I enjoy Disney World. I try to go every chance I get. I don't believe you ever really just, grow out of your childhood. one thing about children, they have imagination, and dreams do come true. I remember that going to Disney where dreams do come true. And one thing that I'm doing now, it really is working toward a dream, working toward a vision, and that is to become the next mayor of Warner Robins, Georgia. It started early in my life.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Joe Musselwhite. You want to tell us about it, Joe?
Yeah, my grandparents lived in Cordell, Georgia on 14th Avenue West. Some of my kin people started a farmer's market down there. I think his name was Frank. I used to spend a lot of time, I spend the summers down in Cordell with my grandparents, and this picture was actually taken down in their area. They had this made of me, I think it was 1955. And I had very good childhood memories. I had good parents. I have 3 sisters who I love very much. And I'm happy to be a candidate for Mayor of Warner Robins.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. Mr. Randy Toms. You have a photo for us?
I do. I'll do the best I can with this. I don't know if you can see it or not. But that was when that's when I was probably about 5 years old. Lived here in Warner Robins, of course. Probably hadn't started school yet. Probably had these pictures made at Olin Mills Studio, which everybody that's from here will remember Olin Mills, and I'm sure at some point had their family photo made there. And it just was a very happy time in my life when I had 2 brothers and my mom and dad, and we lived in the manor around the MacArthur Boulevard area over behind the Dairy Queen off of Watson there. And it was just a happy time, and I want to be your next mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Toms. And Mr. Mike Brashear.
Yes, hopefully you can see the picture. This is my brother and I'm doing my best impersonation of Mr. Gary Lee, with the striped suit and pretty bow tie. But in this picture, my brother was about 9 and I was 7. As you well know, that I grew up and did my time in the Air Force and worked with the Air Force. My brother was a U.S. Marine in combat wounded veteran in Vietnam, 1968. So very proud of my brother. Thank you.
And thank all of you. I think that was kind of interesting. If we have time at the end, Mr. Chalk, I'll let you try to show yours again. Sorry about the difficulties there.
No problem.
Now we're going to try to get into some city issues questions. Most of these were submitted to the Telegraph from our readers. Well, I'm sorry, all of them were submitted except for one question, which I'll tell you about later on. The first one is from Cecil Buchanan. He's 76 years old, and he says, "The north side of town has been forgotten. We pay our taxes just like the folks on the south side of town." He says there are 2 homes in his neighborhood that need to be removed, but he's made no headway with contacting the city to do so. How would you help, Mr. Buchanan, and what are your thoughts on the future for the city's north side? We're going to start with Ms. Folse.
Well, I'd have to look at the properties and see what the situation is with them. Does it stay there vacant? The property's vacant?
I don't know.
Or occupied, or what? I'm one of these people that believes that private property should be absolute, and I don't think we should go and use as eminent domain indiscriminately like that to just tear down properties that involve legal issues, and you have to be careful how you go about it. I think that the good thing to do is to encourage people to keep up their property. I think that's the difference between Macon and Warner Robins. We have a different culture here. We have people from all over the world, and I think that we do take some pride in how we keep up our property.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Folse. And Mr. Lee, could you tell us how would you help Mr. Buchanan, and what are your thoughts on the future for the city's north side? You have a minute to give us an answer there.
Well, regards to Mr. Buchanan's concern, we've already taken the first steps. The first steps in applying for federal aid, and also by way of applying for the Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant. It's a $5,000 planning grant that's funded by the federal government. We're also working with our community development and also redevelopment, and also the community partners who make up the Warner Robins collaborative partnership. So the grants have been submitted. Of course, some things are tied up in D.C. We are a #1 contender of being awarded the funding in order to bring forth a plan with contractors to the table in order to address the blight, to address the abandoned buildings, and make this North Davis Drive the place it used to be.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Joe Musselwhite, could you tell us in a minute how would you help Mr. Buchanan, and what are your thoughts on the future for the city's north side?
Oh, absolutely. This is my favorite question. Mr. Buchanan, I'm going to form a coalition of public works, fire, police, code enforcement, local record people, volunteers, people with weed eaters, chainsaws, backhoes. We're coming in the north side of town, and we're going to clean it up. We have local laws, state laws, federal laws, ordinances, municipal court system. People own these properties, and they are responsible for them. I'm all for grants and aids, but everything's not a free gratis program. People are responsible for their own property. We'll notify them, follow the law, tell them what law they're in violation of. Of course, we'll help them any way we can, but we're going to get these properties cleaned up, and it won't take long to do it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. Randy Toms, how would you help Mr. Buchanan, and what do you think is the future for the city's north side?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to realize that Mr. Buchanan is absolutely right. The north side of town has been neglected for a long time, and it is in much need of cleaning up and repairing. And we do need to put together people that will go out and work, but I also think that we can develop more of a pride in ownership in our certain areas of town that need to be cleaned up. And we can do that by joining forces with not just our departments within the city, but also churches and private organizations that are willing to get out and help people get cleaned up. Because a lot of the times we have to realize that we are where we are. We can't go back and unring a bell. We can't go back and do anything differently. We have to start from where we are, and that is that the north side of town has been neglected, and it does need cleaning up, and we do need to get it in a situation where we can bring new businesses in and bring in new things for people to do in that part of town to attract people to that part of town.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Toms. And Mr. Mike Brashear, how would you help Mr. Buchanan, and what's the future of our north side?
Well, thank you, Mr. Buchanan, for your question. Over the course of the last 2 years, I've been on City Council, and I've worked very well in cooperation with Daron Lee and the other councilmen and councilwomen, Ms. Robbins we can't forget, and we have specifically focused on the north side of town. We currently have Alberta Road being resurfaced. We've done new stormwater drains up on King Street where it connects with North Davis. We've done, we're looking, we purchased a property at Walker's Pine and going to clean it up and turn it into a passive park. We purchased land up at Alberta in North Houston for a new sports complex in that area. So over the course of the last 2 years, we've been very focused and very attentive in trying to improve that area of town. With the next 4 years as mayor, I will continue to collaborate with the council, setting priorities and pursuing the cleanup and the redevelopment of that section of town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brashear. And Mr. Chuck Chalk, how would you help Mr. Buchanan, and what's the future of our north side? Sorry, we're not hearing you.
Mr. Buchanan, you pose a question that we hear frequently is what we're going to do with the north side. I want to ensure that we communicate with citizens, such as receiving the feedback from you and other citizens. We got to have that open transaction of people's concerns. The city is there to serve people, and we need to hear from the people in order to serve them well. We need to work with property owners wherever they are, north side, south side, east, or west, and work with them first by letting them know what the standard is and whether they are or are not meeting those standards, and then help them get to where they are meeting the standards, whether that be encouraging them to do it on their own or to bring in resources and help them get to that point, or even having to go in and use some sort of eminent domain to take care of the property. We also need to listen and work in those areas for economic development. We need to keep crime down low. We need to encourage residential growth as well as business growth in those areas. And business and residential growth isn't going to happen unless we have low crime. Thank you.
No, I can't hear nothing.
I can't either.
I can hear y'all.
Yeah.
Oh,
can hear
sorry.
16.
Sorry about that. Apparently my computer wanted to mute. Sorry about that. I'll re-ask the question. It's about downtown revitalization. From Kim Stewart, a teacher here in Warner Robins. She asked, what will you do about downtown revitalization? And we'll start with Mr. Daron Lee.
Hello? Can you hear me just fine?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me just fine? Okay. All right. One thing that we are doing that I think we can do better is we need to collaborate more with, we have different organizations like downtown development, as well as you have redevelopment and community development, as well as the citizens who make up this entire city of Warner Robins within the community. We really have to get together and get everybody to the table. It seems as though everyone is doing their own, they have their own agenda. But basically, we really need to get down and sit at the table and work toward a common goal. There's something that that can be done, but we have to do it together instead of the redevelopment doing one thing, community development doing another, and downtown development concentrating on one agenda item as well. We need to sit at the table, look at the available grants, and look at the expertise we have in the room, and really move toward the common goal of really creating a downtown or revitalizing that area.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Musselwhite, what would you do about downtown revitalization?
Well, I'd relook at some of the plans that the council, mayor and council, and then these authorities have had done over the years. Probably close to $500,000 has been spent on studies about revitalization downtown. Nothing's been done. In 2009, when Mr. Haverhill was the mayor for a brief period there, council approved $150,000 to enhance Commercial Circle. I personally have sit in 25 meetings in the last 3 years about this, and nothing's been done. The plan's in order. There's no reason that the work don't start today. That'll be a good start, and then we need to grow from there. We need a we need a business hall. We need a meeting hall in that area. There's a lot of things we can do downtown to enhance the area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. And Mr. Toms, what would you do about downtown revitalization?
Well, first of all, I would build off of the excitement that I think is already in place for revitalizing the downtown area, and then cause that excitement to grow. I've talked to numerous business owners in other parts of our city that are more than willing to not only come to that part of town if we were to revitalize downtown, but also who are available, who have monies available, and who have other avenues of private money available to bring that about. I think we need to partner with other organizations like our colleges, for example, to see what we need to do about revitalizing that downtown. What does it look like? Let's don't just talk about doing it. What do we want it to look like? And do we want to just patch it up, or do we want it to be an exciting place to be? And I think we want an exciting downtown, and it pays to go to other areas of the state and see what they've done with their areas like that, like I have in Columbus and Albany, and it really can make a difference.
Thank you, Mr. Toms. Mr. Mike Brashear, what will you do about downtown revitalization?
Thank you, Kim Stewart. This is an excellent question. We currently have in process a program to formulate and form a tax allocation district in our downtown area. What a tax allocation district would do is allow us to entice investors to come into that area, redevelop the area, and the proceeds, the reduction in taxes that they would be paying would be held into the tax allocation district to help us refund or fund the continuation of the redevelopment in that area. It's already in the works. We're currently in the process of presenting that to the Houston County Board of Education and the Houston County Board of Commissioners, hopefully to get their approval and to proceed in accomplishing that. So an excellent question, and we do have a good plan in work to help us revitalize that area.
Thank you, Mr. Brashear. Mr. Chuck Chalk, what would you do about downtown revitalization?
Well, it also the vision. We got to figure out what it is we want to do. As Mr. Musselwhite had mentioned, we've had several studies that kind of lay out some ideas, and those things I think are very good. I think they're where we can start. We need to ensure that we are working towards a revitalized downtown. What I envision is green space, walkability between the Middle Georgia State College, Georgia Military College, City Hall, the possibility of a hotel convention center in that area with green space included, filled in and wrapped around with shops in the area, and maybe even little kiosks along the walking path for people. We got to have a place where people can come and find community, a place where we can congregate. The Fall Festival was a wonderful example of that, where people could come down, rub shoulders with other people and shop owners. We also need to look at developing arts and culture in the area as well, art galleries and possibly a museum, historical center of some sort.
Can't hear you, Christina.
What would you do about downtown revitalization, Ms. Folse?
Okay, coming in from the base across the railroad track, that's the gateway to our city, and that should be pleasing and beautiful to any newcomers coming in. It's our historic record where we started and should be preserved. However, I don't know how we could do a downtown with the Watson Boulevard running right through the middle of Commercial Circle, so forth. So perhaps that should be paved with brick walkways and made into more of a park, and then we decide where we want our downtown. Perhaps it would be better across the front street and some of the other, where the railroad station newcomers meet places. And we have that wonderful boarding house where it's a wonderful place to eat. So it hasn't seemed to have taken off. I mean, we've paid for these studies, and we keep paying for these studies, and we're not doing anything. So we have to make a decision.
Thank you, Ms. Folse. And Mr. Daron Lee, could you tell us what would you do about downtown revitalization?
What I would do about downtown revitalization, I do believe you already answered that question. You asked me that question already?
No, I don't think so.
He already answered it once.
I answered it once.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Well, then we'll move on to the next question, which comes from a reader who declined to give his name, but he's 81, and he says, "In this scattered mess we call the..."
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. My lovely computer keeps muting. Okay. Again, this is from a reader who decided he wanted to remain anonymous. In this scattered mess we call the city of Warner Robins, the #1 problem is still traffic. Main streets become parking lots, and excessive speed through neighborhoods is common and dangerous. This person suggests a traffic safety expert. but what are your solutions to alleviate traffic and speeding in the neighborhood? Okay, I'm sorry, I was waiting for some of the feedback. Candidates, can you please make sure you have headphones in on all of your devices? Okay, sorry for that question. This question again is about traffic. He suggested a safety expert, but what would be your solutions to traffic? We'll start with Mr. Toms, who I believe has clocked out, or his video has gone out. In that case, we will start with Mr. Chalk, if you don't mind.
Hi. Well, yes, that's another very popular question and topic we get when we're out talking to folks is what are we going to do with traffic? Well, police patrols are going to help with some of those speeding issues. We just don't have enough policemen out there for crime. We certainly don't have enough for police there specifically for traffic. So we need to increase our police presence, which will hopefully deal with some of the speeding issues. Also, with the main roads that we look at, particularly Watson and Russell, we have the center turn lane, which some people refer to as a suicide lane. We can work with DOT and the county and see what we can do about possibly making that a built-up median, a beautified median where it looks good, but also helps control of some of the traffic where you have people turning left and right in front of each other at any given moment there in the traffic. Those are things that I am aware of, and certainly we will have to deal with experts and get their expert opinion on what to do with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chalk. Ms. Eva Folse, what would you do to alleviate traffic?
Yes, I agree that the traffic in the neighborhoods and the speeding is definitely a problem. It's like a racetrack in my neighborhood, and we looked into putting speed bumps, and that didn't agree with that. The city didn't want to do anything, but they come around the curve, the cars just fly, and the little child or an animal doesn't have a chance. I've had a couple of pets that were killed on the street. So, yeah, I think it's a problem, and some of it's been alleviated with some of the roads that have been improved, and we just need to keep that in mind. But the development has been so scattered here; it's not really planned. It just whenever a contractor or someone wants to build a neighborhood, they just up and build it. There's no real plan for downtown.
Thank you, Ms. Folse. Mr. Daron Lee, traffic. What would you do? What would you do to alleviate it?
Well, one thing we do already have on hand. We have officers who actually do traffic surveys, and we do understand that the city of Warner Robins it's growing. It was one of the fastest growing cities. It really was, and is on its way to be one of the top fastest growing cities in this area. We just have to prepare for growth, and more growth is coming, and we have the people in place, the professionals in place to accommodate the growth in regards to the activity that goes.
I don't hear anything.
I'm with you, Chuck.
I'm with you, Chuck. You too, Randy.
We'll just have a conversation among ourselves.
Yeah.
Mr. Musselwhite, what would you do to alleviate traffic?
Christina, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you, Joe.
Okay. What I would do is there's a traffic practice, and it needs to be implemented here. We have a lot of old infrastructure here. There's a practice called traffic calming. And what I'll do is I'm going to go in some of the worst speeding areas in Warner Robins, like Holly Street, Kimberly Road, places like this. There's a difference in a roundabout and a traffic circle. We can put traffic circles in. Part of my beautification plan for the city is putting these traffic circles in and putting trees and landscape in the center of it. And what they do is they will slow you down. They're using other cities. It's modern day engineering practice, and we're going to implement it here, and we're going to do it around Warner Robins all over town. It's very inexpensive, and we're going to get the job done.
Thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. Mr. Toms, what would you do to alleviate traffic?
Well, you know, I just know that like Mr. Lee said, we grew incredibly fast, and that caused a lot of the problems that we have in traffic. I think the easiest thing to do is to say that we do need to cut, you know, we need to cut down on some of the speeding that takes place throughout the city. We do that by just getting more police officers on the road and getting that part of it cleaned up a little bit. The other part of it is I'll have to agree with some of the others that I just really don't know. I'm not a big proponent of studies, and I'm certainly not a big proponent of studies that you get and you don't adhere to, but I think that maybe we do need to have a study done to give us the best possible way to ease some of the traffic that gets so congested in our city, and then also cut down on some of the speed areas. So I think a study might be in order on that.
Thank you, Mr. Toms. Mr. Mike Brashear, traffic, how would you alleviate it?
Well, we certainly have an issue with speeding and red light running and so forth in the city. Having our police patrol at the correct numbers, having them in place on the streets would deter some of that. I would partner with Robins Air Force Base in looking at re-incentivizing a carpooling approach to take some of the traffic off of Watson and off of Russell Parkway. It's going to eliminate speeding in the neighborhoods. If you have that issue, you pick up the phone, you call the Warner Robins Police Department, they'll document it, and they'll patrol that neighborhood to try to slow the traffic down for you. I've had the same thing out at Belmead, had it at Hatcher Estates, over at Edgebrook, and those areas, and our police department works very well with our citizens to try to help them in those situations. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us. I think we're going to try to shake this off a little bit. We've had a few technical difficulties here. Is everyone ready to shake it off with a little bit of trivia?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Please stop muting the mics, guys. So everyone's got a piece of paper ready with them, a marker. And you've got 15 seconds each for these questions. The first question. What were the two previous names of what is now known as Warner Robins? Oh, that's time, guys. Everyone hold up your answers, and I'll give you what it really is. We've got a Wellston and a number 2, Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee's got like 3 videos there. York and Wellston. Miss Eva's got Wellston. We've got Wellston and what is it? Something Vegas?
Warner Vegas.
Okay. Mr. Toms?
I just had Wellston.
Okay. And Mr. Brashear?
Fagan's Mill in Wellston.
Well, guys, it is York and Wellston. So, congratulations, Mr. Lee. The second question. What Warner Robins resident literally wrote the book on T-ball? Okay, guys. Time's up. Claude Lewis. That would be the answer. Anybody else have Claude Lewis?
I have Claude Lewis.
I have Claude Lewis.
Did anybody not have Claude Lewis?
Yeah, he and my father did that.
As I'm sure you know, Claude Lewis was a former director of the Warner Robins
Parks and Recreation.
Did I hear a doorbell?
I don't hear anything.
All I hear.
Thank you, Jenna. That's my colleague on the other end doing the sounds for us, Jenna Meek. So the last 4 elected mayors, they are Chuck Shaheen, our current mayor, Donald Walker, Edward Martin, and Ralph Johnson.
Is that a true-false question or what?
I didn't hear the question. Was it?
Sorry, someone keeps cutting my mic off. Please stop clicking on mics. The question is, what are the names of the four elected mayors, the 4 previous elected mayors?
True.
Yes. I agree.
The last 4 elected mayors. You should at least be able to get 2 of them.
Well, you just told them to us, so we know.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you could still hear that. Well, fine. We'll go on to the bonus question. And this is just for anyone who can raise their hand and say they know the answer. Who pronounced the acronym for every day in Middle Georgia is Armed Forces Appreciation Day?
Chop chop.
I can.
You got it?
Adimjifad.
What you got, Joe?
Adimjifad.
Really? No one else?
No,
well, I guess they gave it to you, so.
Yeah, I can.
It used to be
I'm not
Air
from
Force.
Warner Robins, so I'm glad that y'all know how to pronounce it. I could get through the first part. So we're going to go on and we're going to do some more questions, more city issues questions. Again, you have 1 minute each for these, and these, the first 3 will have been submitted from our readers. The first one, or really your 4th question, comes from Linda Carnes. She's 59 and retired. She says, what will you do to provide transportation to help elderly and handicapped be more independent? We're going to start with Mr. Joe Musselwhite on that one.
Okay, Christina, thank you. We're going to partner up with other agencies that are funded by the government, by our tax dollars already. People with indigent care and things of this need, there's a couple of them in our area now. We will talk with them and partner with them and get the service needed to the people that need it. We have some of that going on now through our block grant program. We actually give funding for that purpose to local agencies. In the last couple of years, that funding has been cut to these agencies, and I will get the funding back to them where they can help us like they have in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. Mr. Randy Toms, what would you do to provide transportation?
Well, the first thing I would do is care enough about them to look into every possible avenue to get them transportation. They're an important part of our community. They're actually a larger part of a community than some people may want to believe. So I think we need to look into every area. We need to look into private organizations that are already doing that kind of work. We need to look into the possibility of partnering with churches to provide that service, community groups that have transportation available to do that. We need to also look at the possibility of public transportation if that's necessary. I don't know that that's the answer, but I think we need to care enough to be willing to look at every possible avenue available.
Thank you, Mr. Toms. Mr. Brashear, what would you do to provide transportation to the elderly and disabled?
Yes, certainly a good question. I have gone and met personally with the Middle Georgia Coalition for Agency for Services, sat and discussed with them, looking at other areas that they provide transportation services for, and gotten a few bare bones estimates of the cost of those. And I would continue to pursue that avenue. We do not have the infrastructure on Watson or Russell to allow us to run mass transit systems. But we could certainly use 15-van passenger vans, in and out of the neighborhoods to take our citizens where they need to go. We did it to ourselves. The predominance of our people that need the services are on the northeast side of town, and the facilities and the services that need the located on the far southwest. So that's my approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brashear. Mr. Chalk, can you tell us what would you do to provide transportation?
Well, we do have need for transportation by many people, not only elderly and handicapped, but some of the people that can't afford transportation. I would like to look at this issue more as a mobility issue. Some people have even contacted me regarding sidewalks in the north side of town, how they can get pedestrian from one point to the next, but just specifically with elderly and handicapped, we have services that provide point-to-point transportation, and we need to continue to help those services. The city has cut some of the funding to those services. We need to see about them working cooperatively together, and then us helping them service this need. And then at some point we will grow to where we will have a route type transportation, but I don't think we're there yet.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chalk. And Ms. Folse, what would you do to provide transportation?
Yes, we need to form a committee, I think, first of all, and so we are aware of where the people who are shut-in, like senior citizens, that don't get out, and they rely on Meals on Wheels for their meals. I think volunteers are probably the best source to organize and to help with transportation starting out on this kind of situation. So I think we need to be aware where the seniors are and work with the police department on that.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Folse. Mr. Lee, what would you do to provide transportation?
Can you hear me, Christina?
I sure can.
Okay. What I would do to provide, first of all, we would take advantage of the resources that we all have in regards to in collaborative partnership with the city, different transportation organizations here, nonprofit organizations that do assist seniors as well as those who are disabled. I do believe that we can do a better job at informing the community of the services that are available. And true enough, some funding has been cut with some of those for some of those services, and I do believe that that's why it's important to have additional revenue streams so we could have finances to fill in the gaps when cuts do come up, just like what we're going through now. That's the importance of. That's where economic development comes back in, and collaborative partnerships, and have creating relationships where everybody will benefit from that.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And our
I keep muting Christina.
Someone, I won't say any names, keeps clicking on the mic for me.
I apologize. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So our next question is from another reader who opted not to give her name, but she's a 63-year-old resident. She asked, what will you do about drugs and crime? And we're going to start with Mr. Toms.
Well, I mean, I think the simple thing on that is, I say simple, it's not simple. I've been working around police officers long enough to know that nothing's simple in that area. But what we need to do is we need to get our police department back up to its proper staffing. These guys and ladies in the police department are just extremely overworked. They're great, and they do a great job, and as I've said in past, I've seen them work on the street, and I've seen them work in the courtroom, and I've seen the videos, and I've heard the audios of the work they do. And we need to give them the proper training, the proper equipment they need to get out there and do the job that they're capable of doing. We have to get on this. I remember several years ago when a particular family member of mine was elected district attorney, and they asked him what he was going to do about the war on crime. And he said, we don't have a war on crime or war on drugs. We have a disagreement with it. And we need to start a war on drugs, and we need to start a war on crime, and not just a disagreement. And we need to knock this problem out now. But the way we do that is by providing the police officers that we need.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Toms. Mr. Brashear, what will you do about drugs and crime?
I agree with Mr. Toms relative to the fact that we need to get our patrol officers and our police departments up to full capacity enforcement.
Community policing, to have a police presence.
Mr. Brashear?
I hear somebody talking in the background.
That would be Daron Lee, I believe it is.
I can't hear who's speaking.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Starting back over again with that, I agree with what Mr. Toms has stated, that we need to get our police department up to full staff that we're budgeted for currently, and then see whether we need to increase those staffing. But the other thing that I think we need to do is we need to partner with our district attorneys and with our Houston County authorities, and to ensure that we, if you do a crime in the city of Warner Robins or in Houston County, you're going to do the time. I like the fact that we use banishment, for some of these prolonged criminals to get them out of town. But if we crack down and make sure that if you do a crime in the city of Warner Robins or in Houston County, that were to get around fairly quickly. So I would think that that would be a good deterrent or a good way to decrease the amount of crime in our city.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brashear. Mr. Chalk, what will you do about drugs and crime?
Well, we do have an increased issue of crime here. Our city has grown 38% in the last decade or so. We've increased crime by 16%. And you would expect an increase in crime just by the sheer numbers. However, we haven't increased our police officers. We need to allow our police officers to be more proactive addressing some of these issues, going after some of the criminal elements in the neighborhoods, start clearing up some of those areas, provide presence. Right now, police officers are working working long hours, 12 hours a day and longer in many cases. They're trying and doing very well with the resources that they have, but we need to do better in giving them more resources, specifically increasing the manning, 10, 20, 30 people over the coming years. We need to allow them to be proactive. We need to work with neighborhoods and neighborhood watches to get the citizens involved and start opening those lines of communication. If everyone is out there is watching and reporting to the police, and we have sufficient police officers, we can address this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chalk. Ms. Folse, what will you do about drugs and crime?
Hello?
Ms. Folse, what will you do about drugs and crime?
Okay, I thought my phone was dead. I'm sorry. I think that we have to just set a tone and say we're not going to tolerate it. I'm very upset about what happened Tuesday at the Dimitri Street. And regardless of whether that is black on black crime, it's really sad that there was no one there to help that poor man that was shot in the leg. And we've got 20 20-year-olds that are marauding neighborhoods. It has nothing to do with their resorting to crime. We just have to involve neighborhood watch a lot more, and we have to get some more police patrols and to help the neighborhoods and keeping youth busy. I think, like I said yesterday, I think we've got to have a job corps during the summer and figure out how they have jobs. Because the ones that don't go into service, they've got to have something to do when they graduate from high school.
Thank you, Ms. Folse. And Mr. Lee, what would you do about drugs and crime?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that it is a strategy, and it involves more than just the police department, and also involves more than just locking people up and also banishing them from the county. We have to have some type of youth intervention because crime has increased with youth. We have to do something in order to change their mindset where they will not re-enter the law, enter the law and have a track record. Basically, we're trying to change their mindset so they would go out and do positive thing. Also, with youth intervention, we need drug intervention and things of that nature. Basically, equipping people to live better lives and to make better decisions for themselves and turning them from liabilities to assets in this city.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Musselwhite, what would you do about drugs and crime?
Well, throughout my campaign here, I've been briefed on several drug houses. Some of them are, if they tell you about 8, probably 2 of them are really active.
I'm sorry, just a second, Mr. Musselwhite. Mr. Lee, I apologize, but we can hear you on our side, and I think it's confusing. It's a little bit confusing on our end. So if you can
I'm trying, be
respectful of.
Then when you say, no, it's not I'm being disrespectful. I'm saying when I mute, it's somehow I mute you as well. That's why, and so I'm not trying to, when I don't mute, then you hear me.
I understand, but we're not having the problem with anyone else.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Musselwhite, can you continue? What will you do about drugs and crime?
Well, as I was saying, during my campaign, I've been briefed on some drug houses, and I've been around long enough to know that everything you hear, there's 2 sides to every story. Probably if I've been told about 6, 2 or 3 of them are actually where drug activity's going on. But the answer to the question is I will meet with the police chief and with the drug task force we have in Warner Robins and say, I've been told we have a problem in this area. I want it looked into. What do y'all need to do the job? How can I help you? Whatever resources or equipment, or even we'll call Houston County to help. I mean, we're all in this together. But I think the answer to it is just taking a proactive move and saying, we're coming after you. If you're selling drugs, we're going to investigate it and put you in jail.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. And our final question comes from Mr. Joe Rice. He's 63 and retired. He had quite a few questions, but we picked just one. He says, what will you do to bring more jobs to Warner Robins that are not connected to Robins Air Force Base? And quote, because it is not guaranteed that the base will always be here, nor will the restaurant business. We'll start with Mr. Brashear.
Thank you, Joe. That's an excellent question. Over the course of the last 6 months, I've been working very diligently with individuals up in Macon and others around, first and foremost, get the longest runway in the eastern part of the United States designated for a dual-use runway. So we'd have the capability of bringing commercial charter freight line aircraft in and out of Robins Air Force Base, utilizing our skill set in logistics, our skill sets in aircraft maintenance, and the areas around the north end of the base, which is we now own through the repurchase of the encroached area, and build distribution centers up on that end of the base. Fly big freighters in to Robbins, unload them, and distribute it out of the smaller airport in Macon. So that would be my approach.
Thank you, Mr. Brashear. Mr. Chalk, what would you do to bring more jobs to Warner Robins that are not connected to Robins Air Force Base?
Well, as I've said before, we do things really well here, such as aerospace and logistics, and we need to continue to do that well on Robins Air Force Base. But we need to diversify and bring things outside the fence that are both supporting Robins Air Force Base and supporting commercial endeavors. Logistics is going to be a big growth area for us, I believe, in the future with the Savannah port expanding. We have opportunity to be a transshipment point and a management area for some of those efforts. We need to grow those jobs, and we need to have a vision to go get those things. If you're doing something well, grow on the things you do well, and that's aerospace and logistics. If you're a baker and you bake great cakes, you want to go ahead and start diversifying, do cupcakes or other baked goods. You don't want to do something totally different. So we're going to grow on the strengths that we have and start moving industry and growing industry outside of Robins Air Force Base, but work that is similar. And we're going to do that regionally, working with the areas around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chalk. Ms. Folse, what will you do to bring more jobs that are not connected to Robins Air Force Base?
Well, yes, that is part of the mayor's job. You have to create a climate for economic investment and people to want to relocate here and invest in Warner Robins. It involves marketing Warner Robins. We should be a destination city for business, for arts and sciences. It takes involvement in promoting these things.
I'm sorry, Ms. Folse, are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Folse. And Mr. Lee, what will you do to bring more jobs to Warner Robins that are not connected to Robins Air Force Base?
Well, first of all, you have to make the environment marketable. We have to complete some of the projects that we do have on the table, as well as clean up the bind. We have to beautify the area and actually get from behind the desk and get out of the office and go out and build relationships with different people who are actually owners of the CEOs and owners of the private industry, as well as do what we can to help the base be used at its most optimum level, like Mr. Brashear said, having that dual usage, and that would be a great thing because you're bringing in private industry into the base that would really turn this into a major distribution hub that would also create jobs as well. We have to take advantage of other resources around us, the rail system, the airport, the highways that we have, and also we have to continue to collaborate with the entities in this region to grow Warner Robins to be a better Warner Robins than what it is right now.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Musselwhite, what would you do to bring more jobs to Warner Robins other than those connected to Robins Air Force Base?
Well, I agree with Mr. Brashear in one area here. We need to bring heavy cargo in to the base, and of course we can take it to the port. Also, we got 1,000 acres that it's being purchased through the 2012 SPLOST that was passed in March of 2012 down below Purdue Chicken. It's a beautiful piece of land. It's right on Highway 341 and the spur there, which ties to the coast. It's 1,000 acres of land that is for industrial development. There's $18 million in the joint SPLOST of the entire county to develop this area. My plan is to work with all the surrounding mayors and commission chairmen and form a coalition and advertise our city and our county and market it and get a big industry in there.
Thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. And Mr. Toms, what would you do to bring more jobs to Warner Robins other than those connected to Robins Air Force Base?
Well, I do think that there's a lot of things that are going on in the city of Warner Robins that are good. I think we've got some good economic and financial things going on in Warner Robins, such as the thing that Mr. Brashear talked about, and that's been talked about for quite a while. I think we need to move on some of these things and get them done. I think we need to market our city. We need somebody in the mayor's office that can work with other governments, other government officials, the Chamber of Commerce, and market the city of Warner Robins in an effective way so that we can pursue corporations, manufacturing businesses that are looking for a place to relocate. And Warner Robins is an ideal community to relocate in, not just because we're a great place to work, live, and raise a family, but because we're ideal in location as well. To 75, 16, to what's going on in Savannah. I think it's just a perfect area for us, and we need to market that and pursue new business in this area.
No, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Toms. The next series of questions will be different for each of you. They're questions that my editors and I have come up with for you. We're going to start with Mrs. Folse. Your question is, you have several citations for failing to follow the city code. How do you assure residents you'd follow the city protocols governing the mayor's office?
Well, the one that you're referring to is a code that really cannot be enforced. It's something they have to go house to house and check everybody's home to see if they're complying. I can run off at least 20 people right off the top of my head that I know that are over the limit in that situation.
Thank you, Ms. Folse. Mr. Lee, your question is, you've been on council for a full term, but I can only point to MLK as a pet project you've been able to push the city to complete. Your question is, you have talked about cleaning up the city, but your job for 20 years has been Public Works Director. What prevented you from doing that in your former position, and how would being mayor change that?
Well, in my former position, I wasn't over code enforcement. We're going to start in Pauletta Gardens and evaluate what's in there and move forward with cleaning this up, notifying the property owners, and getting this structure removed and doing things of this nature. This is nothing new here. We took down 2 houses in the 90s. This is just something that stopped a great cleanup done here in the past 20 years. The fire department, Randy Toms used to train, they trained firefighters burning down houses, EPD.
Like, for example, promotions. I don't have a problem as mayor going to the council and explaining something to them. You know, one thing I know is that if somebody, I don't know that the mayor needs the responsibility or the authority to fire a department head. I don't have a problem with that. I just think that in day-to-day operations, that the mayor needs to be able to go from department to department and make sure that things are done. But I do think that when it comes to something so extensive as firing a department head, I do think that the mayor should confer and maybe even be able to convince 3 of the council members that that needs to be done. Me personally, whether I had the authority or not, I wouldn't do it without conferring with council.
Thank you, Mr. Toms. Mr. Brashear,
yes, ma'am.
Your question is, if you would abandon your council seat in the middle, well, if you would leave your seat in the middle of your term, how do you ensure residents you would complete the 4 years as mayor?
Well, we have geared part of our campaign to the younger voters, principally over the summer as we use social media. As you said, social media is the way campaigns are moving in the future, and we utilized every bit of that. It's cost-effective and very useful. The more voters, those that are generally 40 and above, I'm one of you.
Followers. Let me see here. His name, he tweeted us. His name is @MattLovesYoohoo on Twitter. He asked, who would do a more effective job of hosting a thriving minor league baseball team, Macon or Warner Robins? Mr. Lee.
Indeed, we will do. Well, we're not weighing cities against each other. I think we're going to take a regional approach. Good question. We have the facility We have the mindset, and Warner Robins is known for sports. We've shown that we support sports in a major way, football, baseball, and we just get enthusiastic, encouraged, and very supportive of anything that has to deal with sports. And if a minor league team came to Warner Robins, Georgia, I do believe we'll receive them in more ways than one. We'll support them physically, from my appearance, and also financially. We'll do what we can, because it'll be a win-win. They would benefit from being here, and we would also gain an extra revenue stream somehow from them being here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Musselwhite,
Same
who would
question.
do a more effective job of hosting a thriving minor league baseball team?
Well, we haven't had our chance yet. The others have already failed. And I'm in favor of minor league baseball team. It needs to draw from a lot of people. It's a regional thing. I'm all in favor of it as long as it's private enterprise. I'm not in favor of the city of Warner Robins going into baseball business. I would not put that burden on the taxpayers of the city.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. And Mr. Toms, who do a better job, Warner Robins or Macon?
Well, I'm a competitive person, and I don't mind taking competition on. I think everything we do needs to be with a Middle Georgia regional perspective. I think that's important. But I think to answer the question and not try to veer off of it is that Warner Robins would do a better job, because Warner Robins is a very athletic-minded, very community-minded city, and I think as far as fan support, we could do a great job at that. I think as far as including the other cities and other counties in our area to come out and be a part of it without trying to rub in their face that we're better at it than anybody else. I think we would make it a regional and community involvement, but I think Warner Robins, if we're comparing, I think Warner Robins can do a better job at just about anything, so that's where I'm going to stand.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Toms. Mr. Brashear, Warner Robins or Macon, who would manage the most effective minor league baseball team?
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, would be our international city of Warner Robins. During the course of the last couple of weeks, I had a number of different conversations with personalities out of Macon and Bibb County, and they agreed that if minor league baseball was going to come back into the Middle Georgia area, it would have to be done either in extreme South Bibb County or in Houston County, Peach County, here along our corridor. So beyond a doubt, we would be the best place to do that. Look at our Southeastern Little League tournament that we put on for 2 weeks every year. The number of people that attend those, we can have 15,000 people out there for a Little League ball game, so we could certainly get 3,000 or 4,000 night turnout for a minor league baseball game. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brashear. Mr. Chop, I think I know the answer by now, but Warner Robins or Macon?
In my best Dick Vitale, you kidding me, babe? Warner Robins. We would do a great job, as proven with the Southeastern Little League, as proven with our youth sports, as proven with so many other great things. The volunteerism here in Warner Robins is awesome, and we would do a great job of hosting a minor league baseball team. I think it would add a great flavor to our city. I enjoyed minor league when I lived in Augusta, Georgia. It's a great opportunity for us to get out and have fun on a summer night. We do a wonderful job at it. I don't mind little rib jabbing between friends. That's part of being in the military, Army, Air Force. You poke at each other, but in the end, you got everyone's back. So that's the way we're going to do it here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chalk. And Ms. Folse, are you going to change it up for us? Is it Macon or is it Warner Robins?
Well, Christina, that's a really easy question. Of course, Warner Robins would be awesome at getting a minor league baseball team. I have a granddaughter that's on scholarship in Atlanta in sports, so I'm a big sports enthusiast. If you look at Macon, they don't even support their high school football teams very well like we do. Of course, it takes millions and millions of dollars to get a stadium like that. I mean, look what happened in Macon. They have a field, and they lost their minor league team. It is something to consider, and it certainly would bring great economic development to our city.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Folse. And that is all for our questions today. We're going to give each of the candidates 2 minutes for a closing statement. And we're going to start with Mr. Musselwhite.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to talk, and everyone that listens. And Christina did a good job of asking questions, and people that ask questions send in questions to be asked. We appreciate that. We covered a lot of ground today. We decided we need to clean up Warner Robins. We all agree on that. We need to get the blight out. We need to enhance the old downtown area and do something about the speeders and the drug houses. These are problems we have. These are in every city. Nothing's ever going to change until somebody says, let's sit down and talk. This is where we're going to start, and I hope the end is near to solve these problems. We've been talking about some of these things for years now, and nothing's been done. And as your mayor, I assure you, my first day in office, we're going to take steps to move forward in every direction we talked about today. And I encourage each and every one of you to vote for Joe Musselwhite on November the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. Musselwhite. Mr. Toms, give us a 2-minute closing statement.
Well, Christina, thank you. Thank you to the Macon Telegraph for hosting this event. Thank you to the people that sent in questions and cared enough to do that. Thank you for the folks out there listening. Thank you to the other candidates for being involved in this. And there's been a few technical difficulties, even on my part. I'm on a cell phone and my battery's dying, but I have it plugged in. That hadn't helped a whole lot, but we're getting there. But I just wanted to tell people that we are at a critical point in time in the city of Warner Robins. Having been here my whole life, that means something to me. It means something to everybody. I'm not trying to shortchange anybody else's love for this city. I'm just telling you that mine runs deep. I've been here forever, and I want to see Warner Robins thrive. I think we're the best city anywhere around. I chose to come back here, get married, and raise a family here because I love this city. I've served this city for all of my adult life, and I want to continue serving this city in the capacity of mayor. And I think that right now, where we are with the possibility of BRAC coming in the next few years, what we need to do is we need to make sure that the city of Warner Robins looks the best it can when people look across from that Air Force Base. And I think that what we need is we need a leader that has the ability to go in and work with people, who has a history and an experience of working with people, not just in the local level, not just in the fire department, but throughout the state, who has the experience like I do of working with firefighters, fire chiefs, legislators throughout the state to get things accomplished for something sometimes that doesn't even involve me, but just the fact to be a part of it. And I have that kind of experience to pull people together. I think the citizens deserve the services that they're paying for, and I'm the leader that can bring those services to fruition. So I ask for your vote between now and November the 5th, and on November the 5th to be the next mayor of Warner Robins. Please vote Randy Toms for mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Toms. Mr. Brashear, a 2-minute closing statement.
Yes, thank you, Christine. Today's forum has been quite interesting, quite entertaining, and I hope that our viewers have had an opportunity to really get to know each and every one of us a little bit better. First and foremost, my top priority is to protect Robins Air Force Base, to ensure that we can do as well as possible if there is another round of BRAC or if there's not. But there's things that we, the city, need to do to improve our city that will help our position with the base realignment and closure. The second thing that I focus most certainly on is we need to create jobs for our next generations. We've all seen the city grow 38% over the last 10 years plus, and we're continuing to grow in the middle Georgia area. So we need to create jobs so our children don't graduate from high school, go off to college, and have to go somewhere else to find work. You know, here is a couple of my reasons for why I'm running for mayor. These are my grandsons, Ryland and Tucker. Their mother and dad love it here in Houston County. We love it here in Houston County. And this is why we chose to make Houston County our home. and so that we want to make sure that what we leave for our grandchildren is far better than what we found when we got here. So I appreciate your support and hope that you would vote for me for mayor of Warner Robins beginning next Tuesday, October the 15th through November the 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brashear. Mr. Chop, 2-minute closing statement.
Hi, yes, Christina, thank you very much for doing this and using technology to get us all together, and Macon.com and Macon Telegraph for hosting this. It's been useful, beneficial, and enjoyable. I want to close by pointing people to my website, chuckchalkformayor.com. We have pushed out there the Warner Robins vision for 2024. When I walk into office on January 1st, this is the mission and the strategic priorities that I want to start pushing and working with council to polish these off, get their input, and coming up with a final product so that we can start moving forward. Our strategic priorities, we want financial and economic development, financial health and economic development, mixing the right way so we're not overburdening any sector of our city. We need to ensure we're growing and increasing the tax base, our economic development, bringing in more jobs, quality jobs for all members. We also need a customer-focused government. We can't sit here in City Hall and say that we know all the answers. We need to ensure that we're talking to citizens, we're talking to council, we're talking to the workers, focusing on those customers, the people that we serve here in this. And we need to drive towards a sense of community, working with schools, working with community leaders, working with the chamber business leaders, working on transportation, and developing a sense of community here in Warner Robins. Those are the three strategic priorities I see that we will move toward a vision of being a great place in our nation to do aerospace and logistics while also being a great place to live, work, and raise a family. So I ask for you and your vote beginning October 15th for early voting at City Hall, and then on November 5th at your polling location. Please vote for Chuck Chalk for mayor because we do need a brighter tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chalk. Ms. Folse, can we get a 2-minute closing statement?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I thought my phone was cut off again. Okay, thank you, Christina, for all of your hard work that you've done at the Macon Telegraph to host this forum technologically. And people can use the video. I get the ideas. I'm really humbled to be among 5 wise gentlemen. It takes a lot of work to run for office. So I'm really pleased to have such a wonderful campaign. My idea of being mayor is to put a happy and compassionate face on the city, while at the same time I will offer sensible and conservative solutions to our problems. I think that sometimes we're not allocating our resources the best, so some things do need to change, and some of the projects that don't seem to be finished, they linger on and on. For example, I know that Alberta Road from Houston over to Centerville, that was scheduled to be widened to a 3-lane road, and that was back in 2006. That's 7 years ago. I don't know what happened to that money and what the problem is there, but we need to look at the waste and the spending and how we're spending the money, and just revisit. I understand that the county has told us we're not going to have any more lost money until we finish some of these projects. So that's really important. Like I said, we're at a turning point in our city. We are nicknamed the international city. I think we need somebody that has traveled, that can speak another language, that can fit into that nickname. And I have traveled abroad, and I would say people are people, and everyone, regardless of their status,
Thank you, Ms. Folse. Thank you. Excuse me. And finally, Mr. Lee, give us a 2-minute closing statement, if you can.
Thank you so much, Christina, Macon.com and Macon Telegraph. Indeed, this has been a great fellowship today. A lot of great things, a lot of great points have been touched on today. Many things where in the end the city of Warner Robins will benefit. But what separates Daron Lee from the rest of the field? I have been prepared. I've been prepared. I have finished different leadership schools. I've been prepared. The citizens, they have invested money in training so I can go forth in professional development, bringing forth leadership and management that will get people, that will bring forth teamwork, collaborative efforts. We have invested time in creating collaborative relationships in other municipalities, not only here but in the state, in D.C. And it's time to reap what we have sown. The citizens have invested in me, and it's time for them to see a return on their investment. I am prepared. I know what's going on, what needs to be addressed in City Hall. I don't have to get in City Hall in the mayor's position to find out. We don't have time to find out what's going on. I know what's going on. I'm just not in the position to implement the decision, the directives, in order to bring forth the synergy that's needed in this region in order to catapult us into that level of advancement, that level of economic development, that level of supporting BRAC and the Robins Air Force Base, that level of actually turning this city into the international city it has been targeted and named to be. I'm Daron Lee. I look forward to your support November 5th.
Okay. And thank you to all you candidates, especially for sticking through this with some of the technological difficulties we had. It's been a little bit over 90 minutes, so for those of you who stuck with us, thank you as well. For those who either caught the end or didn't get to see everything, or if you have friends who didn't get to catch any of it, it'll be available on macon.com/elections up to the elections. With that being said, please get out and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, but early voting starts next Tuesday, like some of the candidates said, and ends on November 5th when our new mayor of Warner Robins will be selected. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter at WRIGHT, now NOW86, with hashtag the number 4 WRMayor. For your latest on the mayor's race, and I also tweet about local government here in Houston County and Peach County. Thank you again for tuning in.